Hello, I am Gregory the Poor Typist, and this is hopefully going to be a quick follow-up video to setting up the Passion Planner. So I'm going to do a quick test of a variety of pens and a pencil and see how these work in this planner. Supposedly it takes well to fountain pen ink, so we will find that out. All right, so first we'll start out with my Staedtler Mars Technico clutch pencil. There you go. Obviously this is going to work perfectly fine. The only thing that might not work is my spelling of the name. So this is the Staedtler Mars Technico. And of course, that's fine. It's a pencil. Very, very smooth. Yeah, so when I'm going to pencil things in, this will probably be one of the pencils I use. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to, I'm going to save the fountain pens for last. Let's move on to, this would be, probably a common one I'll use just because I'm afraid of making mistakes and not being able to erase, and yet this is a pen. It's the Pilot Friction Clicker Erasable. Yeah, so I'm sure this is going to work fine. A very, very common thing I find with these friction pens is they do a lot of railroading. Yeah, it's very, very common. And just for the sake of being able to do it, let's test the erasability of it. Nice, look at that. And I don't know why I brush it away because it doesn't leave eraser residue or little bits. But you do have the railroading effect. Not ideal, but again, I'll probably use this a lot in here just because I will be afraid of making mistakes. All right, my favorite, I actually made this into a gel pen. It has the gel refill, the Parker IM, and I believe that's considered emerald green. It's not picking it up too well, but nevertheless, Parker IM gel. And yes, I write big. We'll take a look at the other side in just a moment. Yeah, that's gonna work fine. And I didn't suspect otherwise. All right, now the two that I'm concerned about, well, not concerned about, but I'm hoping will work in here. Particularly with the sort of monthly reflection pages, which is kind of going to be like essentially a journal. Those I'm wanting to use like a fountain pen. The rest I'll probably end up using the Pilot Friction and the pencil. But the reflections, I want to try doing that in fountain pens. First of all, we have, this cheapy disposable Pilot Varsity. Say what you will about these, but they work. There's never a hard start, so, and watch, it's gonna have a hard start now. And they come in a variety of colors. So this is the Varsity. It did snag a little bit there on the Y. I do press really hard. That's just my writing style. But you see it had no problem writing. And again, we'll look at the other side in a moment. But so far, all these are looking brilliant. And yeah, I just wish these looked more attractive. Yeah. It looks like a GP pen that like a high schooler would probably be using. But they work. They just work. And there's a lot to be said for that. Speaking of pens that just work, I hadn't used this in... This is the D-like all brass fountain pen. And I hadn't used this in a while. Well over a week, maybe even a couple weeks. So I was very concerned it was going to have a dry start. But I did do a very brief test just before this. And it worked. And this is actually... This is actually the... I don't know how well we can make that out. It's the bent nib. And it ends up basically being a medium, which is perfect for me. And in here I have, I forget the name of the ink, but it is a brown ink. And I just remember the last part of the name, Detail. So it's basically tea colored. So this is the D-like brass. Oh, that looks beautiful. That looks beautiful. I love this pen and I love this ink. They're like, I've said it before, they're like the perfect combination. And you see that's laying down a lot of ink. So I think, yeah, we're dry now, mostly. So, that... And this was not an expensive pen, and it's definitely one of my favorites in my collection. So, yeah. Very, very good. And I love that shade of brown. It's, yeah, very nice. All right, so now the test. Does anything show through on the other side? Okay, so obviously the pencil, nothing. Next we had the Pilot Friction, nothing. Then we had the Parker IM, nothing. What is it? Pilot Varsity, just a little bit of shading. Not quite bleed through. And then the D-like brass, there's just a little bit more. Both are acceptable. Yeah. I would be okay using either of those, especially if I'm just doing these on the journal entries. Yeah, so we do get a little, it's starting right there just a little bit, wanting to bleed through, but not really, not quite yet. Yeah, if I hesitated with a pen stroke, it would probably bleed through, but as it is, it's basically just a little bit of ghosting, less so on the Pilot Varsity. So, all right, well, this bodes well. Yeah, so I am ready for 2021. And I am ready for 2020 to be over. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.